Imagine a massive international bank, right? And every single employee in this bank is following the law to the absolute letter.
Right, like totally by the book.
Exactly. There's no overt fraud. Nobody is sneaking money out of the vault. And the legal department has signed off on literally every disclosure document.
Okay, so a compliance officer's dream.
You'd think so. But then, despite this total legal compliance, the bank's daily operations still somehow end up completely devastating the life savings of like thousands of elderly pensioners.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's the nightmare scenario.
It is, and it makes you ask, how is that even functionally possible? So today in our deep dive, we are unpacking this, frankly, terrifying gap between simply following the rules and actually doing the right thing.
Because honestly, in the modern corporate world, just relying on an employee's personal moral compass, it's just no longer a viable business strategy.
No, it's really not.
It is actually a massive systemic vulnerability. As these organizations scale up, the illusion that you can govern human behavior with just, a simple code of ethics poster on the break room wall, it completely shatters.
Right, the don't be evil mantra only goes so far.
Exactly. When a company hits 10,000 or 50,000 employees, individual morality just isn't enough to protect the consumer or the market. You need a rigid architectural structure. You need a way to define, measure, and just relentlessly enforce what good conduct actually looks like in practice.
Which brings us perfectly to our source material for this deep dive. We are looking at the inner workings of corporate compliance through a very specific lens today. We're looking at the official course details and syllabus for the ICA's Specialist Certificate in Conduct Risk.
Yeah, the ICA, that's the International Compliance Association.
Right. And this entire credential is built around teaching professionals how to navigate the really complex, often treacherous waters of corporate behavior.
And the ultimate goal of this curriculum is to take these beautifully vague concepts, like having good ethics or treating people fairly, and literally translate them into hard operational frameworks.
So our mission today is to decode exactly what conduct risk actually means in the modern business landscape. We want to discover how this stuff is formally taught, how it's measured, and how it's enforced.
And most importantly, what this means for you as the listener. Whether you are, a mid-level manager trying to navigate a massive corporate hierarchy, or just a consumer who relies on these giant institutions to safeguard your assets.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can look at how this ICA course is actually taught, we kind of have to look at the fundamental premise of the syllabus itself.
Right, getting into the foundational stuff.
Yeah, the course covers the development of the conduct agenda and the core components of conduct risk. But why does a firm even need a specialized, highly technical framework just to make sure its people are behaving well?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, like if we are talking to an audience of seasoned professionals, isn't basic good conduct already assumed? Like, shouldn't we all know how to just be decent?
What's fascinating here is that the syllabus fundamentally rejects the idea that corporate ethics can be left to assumption or common sense.
Wait, it rejects common sense?
Basically, yeah. It treats human conduct not as an abstract moral philosophy, but as a highly quantifiable risk. If you look at the core components the course covers, it heavily anchors everything in GRC frameworks.
GRC meaning governance, risk, and compliance.
Right, exactly. And within a GRC framework, common sense is simply a volatile, unmapped variable. It's too subjective.
Let me challenge that premise for a second, though. If you start turning human behavior into math and risk formulas, don't you strip away the actual empathy that drives good conduct in the first place?
Well,
You're essentially saying that the larger a company gets, the less it can rely on human morality, so ethics have to be converted into a mathematical equation. Sounds kind of dystopian.
it does sound cold, but that conversion from philosophy to data, that's the entire point of the framework.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Think of it like this. Governance provides the architecture of the rules. Compliance is the ongoing audit to ensure those rules are followed. And risk management, which is exactly where conduct risk lives, identifies the friction points that could cause the whole system to fail.
Okay, so how does that look on the ground?
Well, in a massive matrix organization, my version of common sense might be aggressively upselling a product to hit my department's quarterly target. I think I'm doing a great job for the company.
Right, you're hitting your numbers.
But your version of common sense might be giving a struggling customer a break on a late fee. Both of us think we're doing the right thing for the business. GRC frameworks exist to eliminate that subjective friction.
I see, so it takes the guesswork out of it.
Precisely. You have to uncover what good conduct actually looks like for your specific firm and physically encode it into your operations.
Okay, I think I see where this is going. Conduct risk isn't about pulling employees into a conference room and giving them a pep talk about driving the corporate car safely.
Not at all.
It's about literally installing automatic braking systems directly into the vehicle. So,
Okay.
like, if a junior analyst tries to approve a loan that hits 3 different risk triggers for a customer, the system physically halts the process until a senior manager signs off.
Yes, exactly.
The framework itself is the brake.
That is the exact mechanism this ICA syllabus is teaching. The course aims to help professionals uncover how to build those automated braking systems for their specific firm. It moves ethics out of the HR department.
Where it's just, corporate training videos.
Right, and it moves it straight into the realm of operational risk management. You give human behavior the exact same weight and structural scrutiny as financial risk or cybersecurity risk.
Wow. So treating human nature like a literal cyber threat to be managed.
Exactly. It requires constant data monitoring and clear, unshakable accountabilities to manage effectively.
Which naturally forces us to look at where the rubber actually meets the road. Because all of these internal guardrails and GRC frameworks are ultimately built because the company interacts with the public, right?
Of course.
So how does this internal rule book actually translate into a tangible effect on the people out there buying the products or services?
Well, the syllabus dedicates a massive portion of its learning outcomes to understanding what good conduct looks like from the outside looking in.
From the customer's perspective.
Right. And the language the ICA uses here is incredibly deliberate. It focuses heavily on meeting the customer's objectives through an outcomes-based approach.
The outcomes-based approach. That phrase is everywhere in modern compliance. That and the specific mention of protecting vulnerable customers.
It's a huge shift in the industry.
But wait, isn't measuring an outcome incredibly subjective? Like, if I sell a terrible, overly complex financial derivative to someone, but they sign a survey at the end of the transaction saying they are perfectly happy with the service, is that a good outcome?
That's a great hypothetical.
Because how does an outcomes-based framework actually prevent a company from just gaming the metrics to make themselves look good on paper?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that vulnerability you just highlighted is exactly why the paradigm has shifted away from old-school compliance.
How so?
Well, checking a box, like having a customer sign a 50-page disclosure agreement they clearly didn't read, that's focusing solely on the initial transaction. It is purely defensive.
Right, it's just the company covering its own, protecting itself from a lawsuit.
Exactly. But an outcomes-based approach forces the firm to monitor the entire life cycle of the product. The framework demands that you ask much deeper questions.
Like what?
Like, did the customer actually possess the financial literacy to understand those fees in the first place? Or, 6 months later, did this product actually serve the customer's original objectives?
Okay, so the mechanism of compliance moves from just taking a snapshot at the point of sale to basically running a continuous video recording of the customer's whole experience.
It has to. And that is exactly why the syllabus explicitly covers handling complaints and protecting vulnerable customers.
Because the complaints are part of that ongoing video recording.
Yes, a product might be perfectly legal, thoroughly vetted, and totally appropriate for a high net worth investor. But if a flaw in your firm's sales incentives results in that same complex product being aggressively pushed onto, say, an elderly pensioner who doesn't understand market volatility.
That's the devastating outcome we talked about at the beginning.
Right. That is a catastrophic outcome. The ICA course teaches professionals how to use things like customer complaints, not as just an annoyance to be filed away, but as critical, real-time data points.
So a spike in complaints isn't just a customer service issue.
No, a spike in complaints is a flashing red light on the dashboard indicating that your conduct framework is fundamentally failing. It forces the business to take responsibility for the final destination of the consumer, not just the starting line.
Man, it really is a massive functional shift from buyer beware to seller be accountable.
It completely flips the script.
But, knowing what good conduct looks like in theory and actually enforcing it in the chaotic reality of a huge multinational corporation, those are two entirely different animals.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do you put actual teeth into these rules?
You bridge the gap between theoretical frameworks and personal legal jeopardy.
Personal jeopardy.
Yes. The syllabus doesn't just deal in abstract philosophy. It dives straight into the hard law and the regulatory mandates that actually enforce these behaviors.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Looking at the course details, they explicitly mandate understanding a conduct framework in practice, specifically calling out the senior managers and certification regime in the UK.
Yes, the SMNCR.
Right, and they also heavily featured GDPR, which is the massive European data protection regulation. But when you dig into the mechanics of that senior managers regime, it is essentially modernizing the old maritime law of the captain going down with the ship.
That's a perfect analogy. Expand on how that mechanism works in practice.
Okay, so historically, if a massive bank was caught, say, laundering money or creating fake accounts, the company itself might pay a multi-billion-dollar fine.
Which sounds like a lot.
It does, but that fine was basically just absorbed as a cost of doing business. The actual executives who engineered that toxic sales culture in the first place, they often just walked away with their bonuses intact, hiding safely behind the corporate logo.
The company takes the hit, not the individual.
Exactly. But the senior managers regime physically dismantles that corporate shield. Under this framework, senior leaders have to sign a formal statement of responsibilities.
A literal paper trail of liability.
Yes. So if the ship sinks because of systemic bad conduct under their watch, the captain cannot just hop on a lifeboat. The compliance training is literally preparing executives for the reality that they are personally, individually on the hook for regulatory failures in their department.
This raises an important question, though, about how that terror at the executive level trickles down through the rest of the organization.
Right, because the CEO can't oversee everything.
Exactly. An executive can't personally monitor the daily emails of 10,000 employees. What is incredibly telling about this ICA specialist certificate is who the entry requirements actually target.
Who is it for?
It says it's suitable for new entrants, operations staff, officers, specialists, analysts, all the way up to those senior leaders.
Wow, so it really covers the entire food chain.
By targeting such a wide range of roles, the ICA is demonstrating that conduct risk is a top-down and bottom-up mandate.
Yeah.
You can't just have the CEO terrified of the senior manager's regime.
Everyone has to be engaged.
Right. The junior analyst processing the data needs to understand how their daily tasks feed into GDPR compliance. The mid-level operations officer handling the complaint needs to know their exact legal duty to escalate a systemic issue.
That makes a lot of sense.
The syllabus even includes a section explicitly titled, Know Your Responsibilities and Accountabilities. Everyone in the chain must map out where their specific legal liability begins and ends.
It completely eradicates the whole, I was just following orders defense.
It really does.
If you are a mid-level manager listening to this right now, knowing this framework exists literally changes how you write your emails today. You are no longer just a cog in the machine. You are an active, liable participant in the firm's conduct architecture.
That's exactly the mindset shift this course is trying to trigger.
Which leads us to the practical application of all this. If you are a professional who recognizes that these frameworks are fundamentally changing your industry, how do you actually acquire this expertise? Let's look at the mechanics of earning this credential.
Yeah. The logistics of the course are engineered specifically around the constraints of the modern professional. The credential itself is the Spec Cert Conduct.
Quite the mouthful.
A bit, yeah. But it is awarded in association with Alliance Manchester Business School at the University of Manchester.
Which definitely anchors it with some significant academic weight.
Exactly. And it counts for 20 ICA Continuing Professional Development, or CPD, hours.
So what does this all mean for the person actually staring at the enrollment screen? Looking at the source material, it breaks down the format, and it is built entirely for asynchronous study.
Which is crucial.
Yeah, you can technically power through the material in 4 weeks if you want, but you retain access for up to 2 months. And the assessment mechanism isn't some grueling, multi-day proctored event in a lecture hall.
Thank goodness.
Right. It is a 1-hour online multiple-choice exam that you can trigger whenever you feel ready. It delivers immediate results, and you get a downloadable certificate.
The barrier to entry in terms of scheduling is remarkably low, which is totally intentional. But it is the structure of the learning itself that is most critical here.
Yeah, and we should quickly mention the cost, too, just to give a full picture. Depending on where you are, it's roughly 730 British pounds, around 800 euros, or about 950 US dollars. Plus, if you aren't already an ICA member, there's a 12-month membership fee you have to add on.
Though they do offer group discounts, which is nice.
True. But going back to the structure, The student feedback included in the source material highlights this perfectly. Past students didn't just praise the content, they praised the specific delivery mechanism.
How it was actually taught.
Yeah, they pointed out the structured approach, noting the material was split into distinct unit sections and bite-sized chunks, and it was supplemented with summary videos. One student even highlighted the ability to download chapters directly to portable devices for offline revision.
That right there is a master class in adult learning psychology.
Really? How so?
Well, when you are forcing a professional to absorb incredibly dense regulatory frameworks like the nuances of the senior manager's regime or the intricacies of an outcomes-based GRC model, cognitive overload is your biggest enemy.
Oh, absolutely. If you hand a busy operations manager a 400-page PDF on conduct risk and tell them to read it over the weekend,
They'll retain absolutely nothing.
nothing at all. They'll just skim the headers.
Exactly. The course designers clearly understood their demographic. These are people working 50-hour weeks. They are absorbing this material during a 30-minute train commute or during a lunch break or for an hour after their kids finally go to sleep.
So it has to fit into their actual lives.
Yes, the bite-sized chunks and the offline, portable reading aren't just convenient marketing features. They are essential cognitive mechanisms. They allow complex, dry regulatory concepts to actually be synthesized and applied in the real world. Furthermore, when you enroll, as you mentioned, you are required to hold an ICA membership, and that integrates you into an international community of over 30,000 compliance professionals.
That's a massive network.
It is. You gain access to a personalized learning hub and weekly industry webinars. And this is a vital mechanism because conduct risk is never static.
Right. The rules are always changing.
Constantly. Regulations evolve, market pressures shift, and new technologies introduce entirely new vulnerabilities. Staying plugged into a global network ensures that your understanding of risk doesn't just stagnate the moment you pass that one-hour exam. It provides what the syllabus calls professional agility.
I love that phrase, professional agility. It is about building an ongoing ecosystem of accountability rather than just handing out a piece of paper and saying, good luck.
Precisely.
So, taking a step back, we have really charted a fascinating course today. We started by decoding how the wonderfully vague concept of corporate ethics has been forcefully translated into mathematical conduct risk frameworks.
Using GRC models to build those automated braking systems for human behavior.
Exactly. And then we examine how that internal architecture dictates the external reality for the consumer. Protecting vulnerable customers is no longer an exercise in defensive compliance and just hiding fine print.
Right. It requires a relentless, outcomes-based approach that monitors the holistic life cycle of a product. You have to ensure the customer is genuinely helped, not harmed.
And finally, we broke down the actual mechanisms of enforcement. Frameworks like the UK's Senior Managers and Certification Regime and GDPR are putting severe personal legal teeth into these rules. It's forcing everyone from the entry-level data analyst to the CEO to map out their individual accountability.
And all of this heavy machinery is then distilled into a flexible, cognitively optimized credential from the ICA, designed in bite-sized chunks for the professional who has to actually implement this in the real world.
It really is a comprehensive blueprint for the modern machinery of corporate ethics.
It is. But looking at this curriculum and seeing just how heavily it relies on the terror of external regulatory mandates to force companies to care about their customers, it kind of leaves us with a provocative final thought to consider.
Oh, what is the lingering question here?
Well, since this entire operational framework is currently driven by the threat of massive fines and personal legal liability, one has to wonder, will the future of corporate ethics always rely on these strict external government mandates to artificially manufacture empathy? Or will businesses eventually internalize all this data and realize that genuine good conduct, truly protecting the customer's long-term outcomes, is naturally the most profitable and sustainable business strategy anyway, rendering the threat of the regulator entirely obsolete?
Wow, that is the ultimate paradox, isn't it? Will we always need the architectural braking system to force companies to do the right thing, or will the corporate world eventually evolve past the need for the guardrails entirely?
It's something to think about.
Whether these massive institutions can reach that level of operational maturity, or if they will forever require the heavy hand of the compliance officer, is something we will all get to witness firsthand as consumers. Thank you so much for joining us as we unpack the hidden machinery of corporate conduct today.
Keep questioning the frameworks around you and examine how your own daily routines feed into the bigger picture.
We will see you on the next deep dive.